Okay. Well, Dina, thank you so much for taking the time to be interviewed on this particular project, which is the Latino Caucus History in Writing and Working for Change. So thank you so much for being interviewed.
Thank you for having me, Anita.
Yes. Let's just get started. And if you can start with a little bit of background of yourself, and then we'll focus more in on the Latino Caucus.
Okay. So this coming year turns 22 years that I've been in the classroom teaching. I didn't start my career at the academic level. I started teaching in El Paso, Texas, in the middle schools and the high schools there. I taught for 12 years in the public schools. In majority, the population that I taught was majority Latinos. I taught in schools that were less than 2 miles from the Mexican border there in El Paso. And 12 years into my career, I went into the RCTE program. Actually, the Rhetoric and Composition program at UTEP, and did my graduate work there, and subsequently moved here to Tucson, Arizona, where I'm now an assistant professor, just now going up for tenure. So I have 22 years in the classroom.
Wow. When did you start at Arizona State as the assistant professor there?
At University of Arizona, I'm going on my 6th year, so in August of 2011, I started my assistantship here.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Christina, I wondered if you can tell me a little bit about why you chose to attend the C's or NCTE or both, and when that occurred for you, and how you became involved.
Sure. So I actually didn't get involved with NCTE and 4Cs until I started my graduate work. It was actually, as a public school teacher, I really didn't know that much about 4Cs or NCTE, but as a graduate student, I was introduced to these conferences. And as a doctoral student is the first time that I attended 4Cs, which was in San Francisco. And attending 4Cs and being welcomed into the Latino Caucus at that time was really formidable for me as a scholar, knowing that my research and my voice had a place. So like I said, I became interested in 4Cs and NCTE as a graduate student, because it was something that was, they didn't necessarily require it, but they told us how important it was to become professionals in the field.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, what was your interest, your research interest?
My research interest from the very beginning of graduate school has been into the feminist historical recovery of Mexican women journalists and activists from the very get-go. That has been my interest. So in recovery work, feminist historiography, recovery work.
Okay, wonderful. Why did you just decide to join the caucus, and who was involved, and what did you sense was the importance of the caucus for others, and what were your goals?
So I'm thinking back now, and I'm remembering that my organization, I can't remember if they told us about the Latino Caucus or not. But in looking at the conference schedule, you know, as a newcomer, you go through every single page.
Yes.
And on that Friday night, I saw, oh my gosh, there's a Latino Caucus. I'm going to have to go. And I even missed dinner with some friends that actually kind of got upset with me because I didn't go. And I said, I have to go to this Latino Caucus meeting. I don't know what it's about, but I'm going to find out. And you know, ever since then, I've been a member. I knew that this was home for me.
Yeah. Who was involved at the time when you went to your first Latino Caucus meeting? Can you think back?
I do, you know, well, let's see. Of course, Victor always stands out, right? But Christina Kirklider was there. Octavio was there. And I'm trying to remember, I mean, those were the main people that I remember because Cecilia was there. Alejandra Hidalgo was there. Those were the main people that I remember attending the first caucus. This goes back now to 2000, I think 7 or 8. So it's going close on to 9 years now.
So at that time, what were some of the issues that they were talking about, the leadership was talking about?
I remember that representation at the conference, having our place there at the conference, and also publications.
So what was it about publications? They were encouraging everyone to publish.
Exactly. They were encouraging us really to find our voice, as Latinos and Latinas, that these research projects that focus on the pedagogy of Latinos and Latinas and the recovery of these voices, that it mattered and that we really needed to get our voices out there. I remember at several of these Latino caucuses, Victor telling us, publish. And I think since then there has been a proliferation of publications from the Latino and Latina community in the Cs and NCTE.
So with that emphasis, how did you feel about that? Or what did you take away from that? At least your first time and then the subsequent times.
Well, to be honest, I got butterflies in my stomach because I knew that my project, you know, would take off. I knew, you know, that I had a support base for my project and that it was important and that it was necessary.
Did you feel that when you were at the University of Arizona doing your doctoral work?
I was at University of Texas at El Paso. That's where I did my yes.
Did you feel support at Texas?
Absolutely. Yes, I did.
Okay.
They didn't in the least question my project of recovering the voices of mujeres mexicanas. You know, it wasn't something that they didn't say, whoa, wait a minute, you know, they saw the gap. They saw the gap between historically Anglo voices and then the emerging African American voices within the discipline, and they saw that there was this huge gap, and that my research was going to fill that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What were some of the issues that you witnessed and observed while at SEAS? And so how do you remember the caucus responding? And who were some of the leaders that took such an initiative?
Well, Raul Sanchez, that's somebody who I didn't cite earlier. Raul Sanchez, Octavio Pimental, Victor Villanueva, Christina Kirklider, también Iris Ruiz. I met her later. I can't remember if I met her at the first conference. She's now one of the co-directors. You know, they responded by taking these concerns to the board meetings the next day. And as time has progressed, some of these issues about representation within the caucus have remained. And one of the ways that they have shifted the shifted dealing with these issues is by getting people on the ballot and getting people in the on the review boards for the conference, right?
Yes.
I know that Jaime Mejia has been a long-time reviewer. También Octavio Pimental has been a long-time reviewer, but we've been getting more and more people on the ballots of the larger organization.
Yeah, that's where it starts.
Yes. Take it to the top.
Providing service. Yeah. So was there any discussion about the marginalization of the Latino research? You know, you talked about representation. It probably links very closely, but I just want to make sure there weren't any other issues that were also discussed.
Yes, I do remember, and I do remember at the conference in St. Louis. Of members reporting not a whole lot, but just a handful of maybe disparaging comments within the conference that people picked up and heard, and they were being reported at the Latino conference meeting. That I do remember.
Wow. And was there, how was that then taken by the leadership? Was that taken up? Was that put into other issues?
I do believe it was taken up. You know, we've had Victor and Christina there at the helm for a long time. And, you know, I haven't personally been involved in the leadership, but I do know that those issues were always taken up. They've always been taken up at the board meetings, at the 4Cs board meetings. And personally, I don't know what actually came about from those dealings, but I think a culmination of all of those complaints really came at the conference in Tampa, where Adam Banks was the organizer. And I think more than ever at that conference, we felt like we were seen. I don't know what it was. Was the tweeting, the, you know, the positioning of our presentations at certain times and things like that, but we really felt heard. That's what I do remember. Oh, and he also had the ribbons made, I think, for the first time of the Latino Caucus.
Yes.
Do you remember that? I don't know if you...
Yeah. No, for the, at NCTE, I don't attend the Cs, but I go to the NCTE. We do have the Latino Caucus ribbons at NCTE.
Yeah, I don't think we've always had them.
We haven't. That's just a very recent. What I wanted to ask was, did you have more people attending your session because of the tweeting, because of the presence now of Latino Caucus, Black Caucus being felt?
I think so. You know, that's still something that's difficult to, you know, because it's such a huge conference to get people into supporting the members of Latino Caucus and going and being seen. And it's just something very difficult, especially as an assistant professor. You try and visit students who you represent at the university, and then they sometimes overlap with Latino Caucus presentations. And so, but yeah, that's one of the things that we've been talking about in the Latino Caucus, is that we need to support each other and represent each other by going to presentations, which I know that I have really tried to do.
That's wonderful. That's great. What are some of your earliest memories? You've already talked about a few of those, interacting with others, and what kind of discussions, resolutions, and projects transpired. You talked about when you first went to the Cs and with the leadership there, and the issue of representation and publication. Are there any other later memories?
I actually do remember having a phone conversation with Victor, and he actually had suggested or had proposed that he be on my dissertation committee.
Okay.
He has always been extremely supportive that way. He ended up not being on my dissertation committee because, well, for me, having 4 people on a committee felt overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It really felt overwhelming as a graduate student. And, but I felt his support from afar. And also one of the, my dissertation chair also told me that if Victor was on my dissertation committee, that later in my career, that he couldn't serve as,
right,
you know, as a letter writer of certain things, especially for promotion and tenure.
Wow.
Things of
really
that nature. So I was getting some good counseling at UTEP, but mostly it was because I felt muy ansiosa, you know, muy ansiosa to have 4 people on my committee.
I can see that.
Yeah. Having to write to all 4 was something that I found very stressful.
What positive or negative actions have you seen the 4 Cs in being inclusive of Latino scholars and educators? So from this 2007 or 8 to now, do you see, I mean, I noticed you mentioned the Tampa conference, that was a big high in
Yeah,
terms of being very visible by the by the leadership, by the C's leadership. That's very,
absolutely. So another is in recognition of scholarship. This past year, I know that Octavio, he co-edited a professional and technical writing book that received an award. I can't remember who we co-edited it with, but that received an outstanding book award, as well as my book, Occupying Our Space, the Mestiza Rhetorics of Mexican Women Journalists and Activists, that won the Feminist Coalition Outstanding Book Prize. So this is the first time, that they've been giving out. Victor his book won a prize many years ago, but we're starting to see our work being recognized.
yeah.
And I think that's one big thing, right? Is recognition in that way.
Yeah, that makes the book and be read more widely.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Have you observed the C's to be responsive to Latino scholars and educators? And what actions has the C's taken that you see, that you have seen, that you agree or disagree with?
Have they been responsive?
Yes.
And what action?
To Latino scholars and educators.
I think I've covered some of these. Trying to think a little bit more deeply about this. What have they?
We can come back to the question too.
Yeah, let's come back to that one. And
okay, how helpful has the C's or colleagues in the Latino Caucus been in your publishing? And what kind of mentoring has there been? You've already touched a little bit about that with the idea of the recognition. You've received the recognition for your book that just came out, I think, in 2015 or
2015 March. Very recent. So
was that March 16 or was that
March 15? March of 15. So
okay.
For me, when the publishers asked me for names for reviewers, I used 2 names from actually 3 names from the coalition, from the caucus. And they actually went with 2 of the suggestions. And of course, later I learned that the final review of my book was with Christina Kirklighter.
Oh yeah.
And
I noticed that, Christina, not to interrupt, but I noticed that Andrea Lunsford gave you a review. That's a big deal.
Andrea Lunsford también. So, and Jacqueline Jones Royster wrote my foreword. And I was very deliberate about choosing these women because it shows a coalition. There's a representation there from an African American scholar, Jackie Jones Royster. You have Andrea Lunsford, who really represents the roots and history of our discipline, especially of feminist recovery work. And then, Christina Kirklighter, a major player and advocate and leader in the Latino Caucus for a long time. So I was bookended very nicely, and I was very strategic about this. I thought about it because I wanted to show a coalition coalescing with this scholarship. I didn't want it to just be, Latino or Latina voices. I could have very easily asked Victor Villanueva to write my foreword, but I wanted an African American scholar to do that. So
that's great. That's enhancing the network, your network, the Latino network with other groups. Oh yeah, certainly.
Well, and Jackie Jones Royster, she's as well as Andrea Lunsford. They are very much in the coalition. The coalition of, it used to be Coalition of Women Scholars in the History of Rhetoric and Composition, but now it's Coalition of Feminist Scholars. And so I have my feet in both caucuses. I'm very, very active in the coalition. I'm active in the Latino Caucus. And so I wanted to see that coalesce in my book. And, just thinking about it, it happened.
It happened. It got a lot of sun, so I'm moving away. Okay, that's wonderful. And what roles have you undertaken within the Cs, and what kind of benefits have you witnessed from those experiences?
So I've straddled these two caucuses, the Coalition and the Latino Caucus. And I've really gotten involved. I can't do work with, I can be a member of both, but taking a leadership role in both of them, I think would be very difficult. But I've taken on a bigger leadership role in the coalition. First, I was elected and voted in as a board member. And then I was nominated for secretary. And so now I am serving I believe it's a 2 or 3 year term as the coalition secretary. And I have certainly seen benefits from this. I'm reviewing scholarly work through PATHO. I've also reviewed some work for through Alejandra's journal. Present tense, I believe it is. And but my work in the coalition, has really brought a lot of professional as well as personal gratification, because I feel like I belong and I'm making a difference, right? Mm-hmm. So that's been something very rewarding in this.
That's wonderful. That's great. What is the story you would like to tell about the caucus, and how would you like others to remember the caucus? Sorry, I have to move the...
So I'd like so the story that I want to tell about the caucus is that of an emerging voice of traditionally marginalized voices within a very traditional Anglo organization that has really stepped up and made their voices heard. And their histories count by persistent activism, research, and outreach. And the way I'd like for them to be remembered is that they are, the Latino Caucus is a familia, and that you can call on them for help. They've really been advocates, especially, you know, when something cool happens or good happens, they blast something out on the Latino Caucus page. It's nice.
It's great. That is nice to be recognized by others, not just your own colleagues at your university, but more of a broader network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's how I'd like
we're coming
them to be remembered.
Yeah, it's nice. Was there a question I did not ask that I should have? And if so, do you want we can address that now?
You know what? How the Latino Caucus has worked with other maybe caucuses or organizations. For example, I've seen, like on one occasion, Alejandra Hidalgo, I can't quite remember if they reached out to her or if the coalition, or if she reached out to the coalition, but she did a video for the coalition. So in doing these kinds of cross organizational work, someone from one organization coming to another and giving of their time and efforts, and it shows that we value each other's skills and talents, right? So that's one of the things that I also saw. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, we need more of that.
We need more of that.
I was involved with, I'm involved with the NCTE caucus. I noticed that sometimes the Black caucus and talk with us, reaching out and.
That reaching out is good. Yes.
Yeah, it really is. It makes you feel like you're really part of the broader organization.
The broader organization from really a national standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where you really feel valued. You feel valued, you feel heard. So I think that was a great thing that Alejandra did, and the coalition as well.
Do you know what year that was in? Was that just
recently?
Okay, this year?
Very recently, last year.
Mm-hmm. Is that up so that we
2014, 2015?
Can we see that video? Is that up?
Yes, actually you can see it through the coalition. I've been actively populating their archive, and if you go to the coalition's webpage and you click on the archive, it's there.
We can see
I actually uploaded it.
Can you give us that link now here in the interview so that
sure.
We can have that?
www. I think it was the acronym. Let me see if it's changed. I'm actually checking right now.
That would be good.
Yeah, so it is Yeah, it's still, the website is cwshrc.org. It's still W, Coalition of Women Scholars in the History of Rhetoric and Composition.
Okay.
And
that's
if you go
great.
to the archive, you can see the video there.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. We'll include that.
Yeah.
We'll include that. Yeah, that would be great. Well, Christina, it's been wonderful. I really have enjoyed talking with you and learning more about the Latino caucus in the Cs. And this video will be up once we get all of the videos, everyone interviewed. You'll be part of that Writing and Working for Change project, multimodal print and video project that we're working on with Romeo Garcia and Iris Ruiz. So that'll be great.
Very good. Thank
Yeah.
you for including me and having me a part of this.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mucho amor. That makes me feel good.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. And so
Bye.
bye.
Bye.